Today we are going to take a walk in Boston. So come with me to Boston. I'm going to share with you a little bit of the history of Boston, very briefly, but also show you some of the places that inspire me. So this is Boylston Street. Right across the way is the public garden. As you can see, we'll walk into the public garden. This is how would I describe this area? It's lots of hotels, high-end stores, beautiful old architecture along here. This building, though, is not all that new, or old, I should say. It's actually relatively new. And outside dining here is very, very common. But today it's raining, as you can see. Four Seasons is right over here. We are entering the public garden. The public garden actually in Boston is, believe it or not, the first botanical garden in the United States, which is very interesting. You will kind of very quickly walk past the Boston Commons, which is actually the first park in United States that was founded in the 1600s, believe it or not. The Boston Public Garden, which is just beautiful, and the famous swan boats, which I will have you see in just a minute. I think you can see them, even though it's a little bit rainy out. This was a created area. This was all underwater at one time. If you didn't know it, Boston was basically Beacon Hill. There were 3 hills up there at one time, and the rest was a peninsula that attached itself to the mainland. And it was called Beacon Hill because there was a beacon at the top of it that obviously let ships know what was going on. So anyways, this particular area, I digress. This particular area was established in the 1800s, and it has developed over time. It has become just a wonderful gathering place for people in the city, as well as the Boston Commons. Is something that I greatly miss when I go to other cities in the United States that don't have a huge central park. You can see that the Boston Public Garden was founded in 1837. The garden is beautiful. Not only are there trees everywhere, and all the trees are marked so that you know what they are, but this is a huge rose garden. It's too early for our roses to bloom, but it gives you an idea of what's out there. This is the entrance to the garden, and what is the street that is running through us. Right in front of us is Charles Street, and over here on the other side is the Boston Commons, which you can see a little top of the Charles Bulfinch designed State House, which is, has so much history. This particular area of United States has history like probably very few other cities outside of maybe Philadelphia and parts of New York, but primarily Philadelphia have, which is really cool. This particular Commons it's called the Commons because it was established in the 1600s. This actually existed, and there was water. Charles Street was right here where we are, was water at one time before they filled the water in with landfill and created the public garden. At that time, this was the end. Lots of tourists. This is graduation weekend for many college students. But actually, believe it or not, people had their cows grazing in the middle of the commons. There's a cemetery over in one quarter. The commons is actually quite large. Cemetery has headstones from the 1600s, which is quite interesting. As I shared, the trees are all marked and taken care of by Friends of the Public Garden, which is a fantastic organization I am a part of. I love it. You hear children crying over here. Yeah, so as I have shared, I do not have a green thumb, and yet look at this. I get to come, sit, read a book, and look at flowers and beautiful, beautiful trees. And that's something for us all to think about as we're kind of planning out our next chapters. We may not have the time, the space, the energy, the skill for a fantastic garden, but look how a place like this actually fuels you, fills your bucket, so to speak, as you figure out what you're doing next and then charging forward. I hope you enjoyed that. Architecture in Boston is very federal, looks very British, which makes complete sense given who founded this particular area. And I'm on Beacon Street, and this actually is a street that existed at the beginning of Boston. Right across the street, I'll get a little further up here, is the Common. Right here. And you can see the bottom of the hill. I'm on Beacon Street, is where the water was. If we go across the street, you're looking at the Commons. This is Beacon Street right here, and then walking straight up a hill. Beacon Hill used to be about a third taller. They took off the top, and part of what was Mount Vernon, quote unquote, and created, there was one more hill and I can't remember what it was called, but that's how they created or filled in the land down at the bottom, which ended up creating, the public garden, as well as the back bay. We are now at the top of Beacon Hill. You can see that the road goes down. That is the north side. This is most likely a private home, all kinds of private homes up here. And this is the south slope that goes right down to the Boston Commons. The architecture, because this is the oldest part, is all very federal. Looks sort of like England. Gives you a little idea of what it looks like. Up here, I'm still at the top of Beacon Hill. I'm actually on Mount Vernon Street. I also love how people figure out how to put flowers in and make it happy. Beacon Hill just had a Hidden Gardens tour, and oh my gosh, it was incredible. Couldn't take pictures, but it was incredible. You will see plaques like this, the Historical Society, which is very interesting. This is the Nichols House Museum, which actually, believe it or not, was the home of Louisa May Alcott for a long period of time. quite beautiful. More of the scenery. A few more. These were all private homes at one time. And look at this one. Now you know. He really wanted someone to know who he was and which house was his. It says Cabot if you can't read it. You'll also see a bit of the French architecture because, as we all know, France played a role in the American Revolution, and so there were many, many French people who lived in this area. Louisburg Square is still an extremely exclusive area of Boston. It's not at the actual top of the hill, because as you can see the hill goes up, but it's also, you can't see it, but it's straight down. And the water at one time was right at the bottom of that. If you haven't already noticed, Beacon Hill is treacherous to walk. Right now it doesn't look so bad, except it's raining. But in the winter time, I'm telling you, it's an accident waiting to happen. You see more people with boots on, you know, like the boots you get when you break your ankle or something like that. In this particular area in the winter time, it's pretty funny. Young and old. But this is just charming, absolutely charming, as you can see. Extremely expensive, but still, it's fun to imagine, isn't it? I think that's what our next chapters are all about. Imagining. So it's sort of like, I love this, couldn't afford the house, but how can I recreate that? How can I bring that into the home that I create? Whether it's an apartment or a small home in middle of America, whatever it might be. We get ideas when we go out and we look at things that are unattainable, not unlike going to a museum and being inspired by beautiful paintings. Yellow, don't you love it? So spring. Doesn't feel much like spring right now. Although it's not cold, it's just drizzling. Those little pansies are so happy. You see this everywhere. Paris, Boston, wherever there's old buildings, you see renovations galore. This is Louisburg Square. Most of these, believe it or not, are private homes. The likes of John Kerry recently lived here, and his wife. But in the old, go back not that long ago, I think the Kennedys lived up here, and way back was all the names that many who were some of the founding fathers and writers and artists lived up here, believe it or not. I had to show this because when this wisteria blooms, and you can see the remnants of it way up at the top, but when this blooms, it is spectacular. And look at the little addition. You've got the banister, and they put little gold knobs on the tops. Coming down the street, this is just an absolutely fantastic flower shop. It's been around for quite a while and was purchased, a number of years pre-pandemic, a number of years ago by a young couple, they've done a fabulous job. We are headed down the hill, which here most people walk in the street because it's a little bit treacherous. I always think that somebody who owns the flower shop must live here. Look at that, isn't that incredible? It's crazy. And then down at the bottom of the hill is Charles Street. Beacon has all kinds of, because this is old, little teeny alleyways. Some of these were where the stables were. Some of these were where they dropped off goods for the wealthy people. That's going up the hill. I'll take you around. This is going down the hill. That's Charles Street, which, as I shared, was all fill. Here's another, gives you a feeling for another little street. And you can see why the walking is treacherous. Some people have gardens back here, which is really cool. Like you can see the hint of one back here. Beautiful old tree. Charles Street used to be filled with antique shops and kind of high-end shops. And then it fell apart and had to go through a resurgence. And I have to say, there are so many young shopkeepers. Beacon Hill is now, in many ways, it's resided by the old who have lived here for a long, long time, many generations, and young families, young singles, and many of them have opened shops. I think I'll be able to show you down the way a bookstore. It's called the Charles Street Bookshop, which is incredible. There are still a couple of antique shops still remaining. Isn't that funny? I've bought a number of things from that particular shop, but it's mostly a cross-section: clothing, food, different kinds of goods. This is a new little Italian pastry and sandwich shop and meat shop. Excellent, excellent. You'll see what I purchased. I said the name of the bookstore wrong. I go here all the time. I can't believe it. It's called the Beacon Hill Books and Cafe. And it is spectacular. I think Kathy Kincaid did the interiors, and it's beautiful. Okay, now at the bottom of the hill, this is the flat. Oh, and this was a meeting house at one time. Down that street was Beacon Hill Books. It is now Tate, which are everywhere in Boston and loved by many. As I shared, the flat is all created. This was all landfill, but it was created in the mid-1800s, so we're still talking about history. The Hill House is where there was the original fire station, as you can see. There's the meeting house. That's Charles Street. The meeting house is very cool. And there's a old church down here. Beacon Hill was primarily Protestant, never Catholic. I think the meeting house at one time was a Jewish synagogue. But there's a famous church down the street. And if you keep going, you end up in the Charles River. You can hear this Sunday morning church. This is a very English church. I've been to one service there. I was surprised at how much it reminded me of Catholicism. I went to a high mass, not knowing it was 2 hours long. And it was incense and you name it, all included. But I'm coming around the front. Charles River is straight over there. And this is Brimmer Street, which is quite a famous street, named after a famous resident, actually. So it's just kind of cool. You can see there's a real British feel in here. You get the feeling of the age here, even though these look fantastic, and I'm sure they're extremely expensive. What I don't like about this area is the back end of it borders Storrow Drive, and that's a busy street, busy all the time. So even though they have gardens, it's noisy. I guess it's like everything, you get used to it with time. Down here is a street called Lime Street, which years and years and years ago, my daughter and I looked at a little home on Brimmer, or on Lime. Excuse me. I have to show you this street because I've always thought about living here and thought it would be so fun. These were mews. This is where the horses were kept. And the groomsmen lived above because the wealthy people on Beacon Street, or up on Beacon Hill I should say, needed a place to put their horses. Isn't it fun though how you see this in England too, where all of a sudden someone takes the mews and turns them into lovely little homes. As you can see, there's construction everywhere. Can't say I love that color. Now isn't that little area coincident just so Boston. It's been a long spring. As you can see, the peonies are just about ready to pop. Isn't this pretty? There's a lady reading her newspaper, looking out over the public gardens across the street and into her beautiful gardens. It's a very busy area, but it's beautiful. Well-maintained homes. I love it. For those of you that remember the show, this is where Cheers was filmed. And now we're going to walk across the street and get to the public garden. We are re-entering the public garden right at Arlington and Beacon. This is a statue that the Friends of the Public Garden worked on oh gosh, for a couple of years to repair and make beautiful again. Something, isn't it? I love it. Love it, love it, love it. You could see some of the chestnut trees blooming. Those are the chestnuts that cause me so much trouble. And I'm going to show you, walk this way. You know when you're walking along and all of a sudden you smell the most delicious smell? I was on Beacon right back here and I'm like, oh my God, what is this? Lilacs. And that gives you an idea of just how late we are here with spring. See a little bit of everything. Again, I know nothing about flowers. I know lilacs, and but it's just beautiful. It was my goal to sit in the park, have a bagel, cream cheese, and a cup of espresso. But I am like a wet dog. As you can see, there's statues everywhere. People walking. Even though it's raining out, people are walking. This is the pond. It's a man-made pond, but that's where the swan boats. You can go on a swan boat ride. The swan boats are famous. I actually love that bridge. Gives you another view of the public garden and the beautiful bridge. Love the bridge. And you can see the trees. Friends of the Public Garden is constantly working on trees. Some of them are, hundreds of years old, and we're in the middle of a city, so it's pollution. Every major city is fighting to hold on to their trees and keep their trees healthy and happy. Look at this one. It's just something. Sorry everyone, I was hoping to have this conversation in the middle of the park, but it was raining too much. And so consequently I had to come home. I had to dry off, I guess is the phrase. And thought then we could have a conversation. So first of all, I am having you could see my coffee. Oops, I can't turn the camera, sorry. I'm having my espresso. I'm having my pistachio cannoli, which I showed you in one of the shops. And how appropriate. I'm eating on a napkin that says, "You never realize how long a minute is until you exercise." I thought that was so perfect. I had to get a whole stack of those napkins. I shared with you Boston because I didn't grow up in Boston. I grew up in the Midwest in Minneapolis, and but I lived on the North Shore of Boston when my daughter went to high school. My daughter has dyslexia, and in high school she went to a school called Landmark, which is right on the North Shore of Boston. And at the time, most of the friends that I made, I lived there because she rode and she needed transportation and all of that. But at the time I made friends, and my friends were all parents of kids that went to the school. And then obviously I moved to Florida for a short period of time, went through the divorce, and I made the decision to move back to Boston, or to move to Boston. Even though I did not know anyone, in Boston. I made the decision, and it really is part of the next chapter process that or framework that I created and will be in the book, which is really the stages of dream. What is it you want? So when I was envisioning my next chapter post-divorce, it was, what do I want in a city? So you can take this framework and apply it holistically to your entire life, or even to something as small as, where do you want to live? And so I started to write down the things that were important to me. And I showed you the public garden because I'm not a gardener, but yet gardens and greenery is incredibly important to me. I love trees, all different kinds of trees. I love flowers. And so I needed a city that had a park kind of as a central location that I could visit on a regular basis and get inspired by. The other piece is I wanted museums. Boston has what I wanted. I wanted a big enough city that I could make friends, because I was moving here knowing no one. And so I had to make connections. When I first moved here, I was working as a career coach in higher education. And so I made some friends in that area, but most of them were significantly younger than me. And so consequently, as I moved into private practice, I actually lost those friendships. Work friendships are different, right? They are not the close friendships. So, but I chose Boston because it had that kind of lifelong learning thought process, people who were open to dialogue, open to conversations at a level that I wanted. I wanted to have lots and lots of single people from all over. Boston is a very international city as a result of the higher education that's here. I wanted that. I wanted the symphony. I wanted museums, because as a single woman of a certain age, we are going to be going to things by ourselves, and we have to feel comfortable doing that. And the symphony worked for me. The museum worked for me. I'm very close to the theater district, and theater works for me. And since then, I have found a number of women's organizations. So that's the other thing for you to check out. Are there organizations that you can become a part of that you would have something in common with some of those particular women or men, whatever you're looking for? And it's got to be multifaceted, just like you. It's not just the gym. It's not just your place of work. It's not just your church or your synagogue, if that's something that appeals to you. It's a lot of different opportunities. The Public Garden, as an example, has an organization called Friends of the Public Garden, where you can be involved as a contributor, or you can even be a docent to the park if you want to start to give tours of the park. So there's lots of different ways to get involved. So those are the things that went on my dream list. And then I moved through the process just following the book. The framework I created is, trying things out, coming for weekends. How did it feel? Did I feel like I could make my home here? That sort of thing. So, if you haven't already, sign up for the book. My book will be coming out sometime, I would guess October, November, something in that order. We are writing currently, I am currently writing chapter 5, and there are 7 chapters, so that tells you an idea where we're at, or where I'm at. And sign up for that, because I think that particular book is something that hopefully the goal is to help you to design your next chapter, whatever that might be. So I hope you enjoyed today. I'm going to drink my espresso and try my pistachio cannoli, which I have never in my entire life had. So take care. Happy weekend, or bon weekend, as we say in Paris, and I will see you soon. A bientôt.